I'm Tony with Earth Files, Earth History. And during the time that the astronauts were doing their EVAs, they were not walking on the natural part of the lunar surface, but they actually were walking on glass. So in the first part of this video is a sound clip from NASA that claims that this material is quartz, sand, and dust. But the truth is that this material is from deteriorated glass structures that the Anunnaki had constructed millions of years ago. So listen to what NASA has to say about it.
April 22nd, 2005. This is a true story. In 1972, Apollo astronaut Harrison Schmitt sniffed the air in his lunar module, the Challenger. "It smells like gunpowder in here," he said. His commander, Gene Cernan, agreed. "Oh, it does, doesn't it?" The two astronauts had just returned from a long moonwalk around the Taurus Littrow Valley near the Sea of Serenity. Dusty footprints marked their entry into the spaceship. That dust became airborne and smelly. Later, Schmitt felt congested and complained of lunar dust hay fever. His symptoms went away the next day, though, no harm done. He soon returned to Earth, and the anecdote faded into history. But Russell Kirschman never forgot. He's a pathologist at the NASA Ames Research Center, studying the effects of mineral dust on human health. Quartz, the main cause of silicosis, is not chemically poisonous. You could eat it and not get sick, he continues. But when quartz is freshly ground into dust particles smaller than 10 microns, for comparison, a human hair is about 50 microns wide, and breathed into the lungs, they can embed themselves deeply into the tiny alveolar sacs and ducts where oxygen and carbon dioxide gases are exchanged. There, the lungs cannot clear out the dust by mucus or coughing. Moreover, the immune system's white blood cells commit suicide when they try to engulf the sharp-edged particles to carry them away in the bloodstream. In the acute form of silicosis, the lungs can fill with proteins from the blood, and it's as if the victim slowly suffocates from a pneumonia-like condition. Lunar dust, being a compound of silicon as is quartz, is, to our current knowledge, also not poisonous. But, like the quartz dust in the Hawk's Nest Tunnel, it is extremely fine and abrasive, almost like powdered glass. Astronauts on several Apollo missions found that it clung to everything and was almost impossible to remove. Once trapped inside the lunar module, some of it easily became airborne, irritating lungs and eyes.
NASA says that the glass that's on the lunar surface is from a quartz or quartz-like material. And in a sense, they're correct about the glass because quartz is a silicate. Silicate is used to make glass with. So they told part of the story, but not the whole story. So we're going to go to the next glass dome, and you can completely see through it. You can see what looks like a dirt mound here through this glass dome. Now, this that looks like a dirt mound, this is actually a glass dome like this, but it's covered up with material from a glass canopy. This area here where the astronauts landed was actually under that glass canopy at one time. And now it's in the open because the canopy has deteriorated. And what's laying over these glass domes is what's left from the glass canopies. So let's take a better view of it. And I'm going to magnify it and notice the grid pattern here. Here, it looks like a checkerboard almost. Okay, so that's what we're going to be looking at on these next images. And when I get to a really clear image, I'm going to go into a little bit more detail about these glass canopies. So let's watch these glass domes that are covered up, and I'll see you in a minute. Let's stop right here. And when I colorize it, you can see the details a lot better. And as you notice on top where it's real bright and there's like a ledge or an edge right through here, this is some glass that's left over that hadn't completely deteriorated. And you notice here's the grid pattern here. And then it goes through. So it looks like it's been actually woven together. As you'll notice this piece, it goes here, goes under this piece, and comes back and goes over, and then goes under again. So let's continue. Okay, we're going to stop here, and when I colorized it, you can see the grid pattern again. Of course, it's deteriorated and shifted, but you can still see it. Here, these fine lines, here, 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 and all through here. These next images is where the glass canopy originates from, so let's take a look. Here's a colored part of that image, and this used to be a glass dome here that has collapsed. You notice it looks like a crater, but it's not. The sides slope in perfectly even all the way around, 360 degrees, almost perfect. And you notice right here, whatever this part of this structure was of this glass dome, it's spaced evenly apart. Now, whenever this glass dome collapsed, it had the glass canopy built on top of it. So when it did collapse, notice right here where the canopy falls over the sides of this, or what used to be a glass dome. Now remember, these glass domes are built on anywhere from 1 mile to 2 miles of glass walls before they actually started building the dome. So you can see this part here over it through this area, and it extends out. Now, if you look at the edge, you'll notice that there's actually a shadow underneath. So much of this glass canopy that has collapsed is not touching the ground yet, but notice on the edges it's deteriorated. Now, whenever the astronauts landed, the area that looks open, at one time it wasn't. Where they landed was outside of these open area where these glass canopies have collapsed. Okay, let's go to the next image. In this image right here, you'll notice with this glass dome that has collapsed, this is a different one. You can see the glass canopy hanging over the sides, and just like the other ones, it deteriorates from the edges. Of course, that's caused by the height of this, and this canopy being putting pressure on the edges. It will continue to collapse towards the collapsed glass dome also. And here's these open areas that I was talking about. Okay, there's an artifact in here, and I'm going to show it to you. It's right here. Perfect 90 degrees, some type of pipe or support beam or whatever it is. And then the thickness is the same, and then it makes another 90 degrees right here. Then I highlighted the areas so you can see the glass canopy a lot better. And of course, this right here, the reason it's so bright, this is glass through here. Okay, you can see it through here. Also notice there's a grid here, right through here. This area is the open area that the astronauts, not this area, but an area like it where the astronauts landed. Then we have in this image, we have an astronaut standing by the canopy that has fell across these glass domes. And you notice the edge where it's deteriorating towards where it originated from. That's the reason you have such a dark gray color, and then the rest of this is brighter because this is glass dust here. Okay, so let's go to the next images. Now this is the area that the astronauts landed in and did a lot of their exploration. Now right here, these are artifacts here. Here's the glass dome I showed you earlier. And then here's another glass dome in front of it that's been covered by a glass canopy, and notice the grid in it. And then look at the ground. The ground has a grid in it too, which is part of that canopy that fell over everything. So this area was covered by a glass canopy at one time. Notice the ground, it looks like it's got raindrops all over. That's because whenever glass deteriorates, it turns into a sand or dust-like material. In these final images coming up, it's going to show where the glass canopy had laid over an artifact. And then when we get to the last image, which is in color, I'll explain it to you. So let's look at it. With this image colorized now, you can clearly see where the glass canopy has fell across this artifact. And there's another artifact that's sticking up through the canopy. And you can see through it, and you can see that the edge right here, it's real straight. This is probably made of metal. And the reason it's so bright is because when these glass canopies deteriorate, like I said before, they turn to a sand, dust-like material. Okay, everybody, thanks for watching, and I'll see you again.